Welcome back. Bashorun, you had a very public spat with your old-time friend, Dr. Reuben Abati. You've since said that you guys have made up and everything is okay between you. But are things really back to normal?
If you know me very well, I was trained for a few years by one of the most generous in spirit. I'm not talking about his pocket now. Chief Moshood Abiola. Once you quarrel with someone and the person comes back to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know why I did it, called my wife to say, I'm sorry, Abba, I'm not God. He's my friend, he remains my brother, he remains an icon of journalism. I'm sure he would have learned so many lessons that I have not learned. What I know for a fact is that when you are in government, probably what you see, what you hear is different from what operates out there. So I'll give him that allowance. But for me, I have no problem with Reuben. Reuben will always be my Reuben.
You described him as a man who voluntarily set fire to everything he ever wrote, and that is a shame. Do you think he will recover? Because he was a very respected journalist in this country, a trailblazer actually, someone that many people looked up to.
Well, if Jesus Christ could raise up Lazarus from the dead, I see no reason why a man who wasted his goodwill in government cannot be rehabilitated. I expect that Reuben will come out. He will probably do several books. He's a prolific writer. He has a gift of the word. So I expect him to come out and tell us what happened in there. You have not been there, I've not been there. So tell us what they give them in Nassau Rock, you know, and that's just it. But I know that Reuben, a lot of people like him. He's a very likable character. And I'm one of those people who, when he comes, I will hug him and say, but that wasn't good enough. And that's it. It will be over.
Now, another man you've previously criticized is former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Given his very public support for your candidate, General Muhammadu Buhari, are you now a little bit more inclined to be charitable towards him?
Well, the interesting thing is that I've always liked him. It's just that sometimes I found Baba too much of a military man. But he's a likable man. It's just that sometimes it could go overboard. But if you look at it, who is Dele Momodu to an Obasanjo? I'm just like a rat. He had problems with Tinubu. Are they not sitting together today? So for the sake of our nation, we must rise above our personal differences and do something for this nation. Enough of the brickbats.
And in the spirit of rising above partisanship, many people believe that the current president, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, did an amazing thing when he conceded, because, you know, there was always the second possibility. I wrote, thankfully, for everybody that is Nigerian, he didn't travel. Given what he's done and the fact that he's preparing to leave office, what advice do you have for him about life outside Aso Rock?
Well, first, I will congratulate him for being very reasonable. Some people will say, oh, well, he didn't have a choice. He had a choice. He could have decided to throw Nigeria into total commotion. He didn't. We must salute his spirit of patriotism, because many lives would have been wasted for nothing. My advice to him is to study what other presidents have done elsewhere. And I will start from Africa. Jerry Rawlings has been going around with his speaking engagements. President John Kufuor has been doing the same. And if you go to Britain, you will see that Tony Blair has been going around giving speeches, attending, functions, representing the UN in one capacity or the other. I'm sure President Clinton has made probably over $100 million from speaking engagements. He's been to Nigeria to talk so many times. He's going all over the world, and their influence continues to remain relevant.
Now, these are people who've retired from active politics. I've seen things in the press suggesting that the president should go and recalibrate and come back for 2019. Is this something you would recommend?
No. It is his right. even when people said they had no right to contest the second term, I said, no, it is his right. A man can choose whatever he wants. But for me, I haven't been deputy governor, acting governor, governor, vice president, acting president, president, 16
It's
years.
unprecedented, isn't it?
The only Nigerian who has remained permanently in power, permanently. He has not left for 1 second. Not 1 second, in 16 years. That's why I told him that don't fight. When you were coming, you did not lift a finger to get to this position. Don't fight to retain it. Unfortunately, those who were benefiting from the government would never allow him to see reason. If I were in his shoes, I would have announced, like he did at the beginning, I'm not coming for second term. Maybe by now we'll be the ones begging him. At a stage, people thought Fashola was not going to get a second term in Lagos, but the man performed. We were the ones begging him to stay. So the same way, if he had concentrated on that and refused to listen to all those people yelling and saying the heavens and earth will collapse if he is the greatest thing ever to happen to Nigeria, he didn't need it. I've never seen a man so loved by God. In fact, when you pray to God, you should ask for the kind of favor that Jonathan had. Now,
you likened these elections, concluded elections, to the elections that the late MKO Abiola won on June 12th, and said it's the first time that people across the country united to vote for one person. To what extent do you believe that those elections had a bearing on what we saw just a few weeks ago?
Maybe if Abiola and Babangida had locked themselves up in a room, or they had genuine friends, because in the case of Jonathan, it wasn't as if he alone decided unilaterally, I'm not going to fight. There were people who wanted to fight, but there were also people sitting on him and advising him and begging him, including foreigners. I mean, if you see a man like Obama sending a broadcast to Nigerians, then you must know that so many people were interested in that election, and they put so much pressure. In fact, 2 weeks to the election, I knew highly placed Nigerians who told me the election would not hold. I knew of people who said Jega will be sacked. I knew of people who said there will be interim government. Some people even said there will be a coup. And like someone described it today, we had a bloodless revolution. Sorry, some people died. We must remember them. But not on the scale of Armageddon that we had envisaged. And we must thank God and thank all the good people, including Jonathan himself, who agreed that Nigeria deserves a rest.
If Chief MKO is looking down on us today, what do you think he will be thinking?
He will be proud that Nigerians were resolute for once, because without the resoluteness of Nigerians, I'm not sure we would have achieved this. On the day of the election, where there was no electricity, some people brought their motorbikes, put on the headlamps. Some people bought petrol in their generator and brought it to the voting centers. I mean, that was unprecedented. People were determined that this election must go on. And it must be credible, it must be fair, and they must declare it.
And in your view, the sacrifices of people like him, his wife, and all the other people who've gone is the reason why our democracy continues to grow?
Certainly. Certainly. I look back and I feel a sense of pain, deep pain, that a man, his wife, and so many others had to lose their lives for us to have democracy. So we must thank God that today it seems we've learned some lessons from that. It may not be perfect yet, but slowly but surely we will get there.
Thank you very much for being a guest.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching Straight Talk with me, Kadaria Ahmed. My guest was columnist, publisher, and entrepreneur Bashorun Dele Momodu, with whom I discussed the likely makeup of the next Nigerian government, corruption in Nigeria, and what happens when friends fall out over politics. Join me next week when I'll be in conversation with another special guest. Have a good evening.